Welcome back to Biology Video 5. We're just picking up on what is a hydrolysis reaction. It's actually the opposite of the dehydration synthesis. So it is an example of a catabolic reaction. Which can also be called a fancy word for breaking it down. Breakdown equals a degradation reaction. If you think about a body degrading, it's falling apart. Okay. And in this case, so it's the opposite of a dehydration synthesis. Hydrolysis, if you translate it literally, hydro means water. Lysis, you might have learned in Bio 12 with the lytic cycle, means to break or burst. So it's water breaking. Or, more specifically, or adding water to a molecule to break its bonds. Okay. So basically, opposite of dehydration synthesis, you add an OH to one side of the bond and an H to the other side, essentially breaking the molecule apart. So if you were to look at this, you could have over here molecule, whoops, sorry guys. You could have molecule W attached to molecule Z. And you could add in water. And if the molecule had the right chemical composition, that water could break apart the bond between W and Z so that you get OH on one side plus H attached to the other half on the other side. And we would call that a hydrolysis reaction. So what we have here, we have the water breaking the bond and actually appearing partly with one of the new molecules and partly on the other side of the new molecule. And this is what our body does. The two main reactions we use to break down biological molecules and to reform them into other shapes that's more useful to the human body. So the question is, what are the four key classes of biological molecules found in humans? I'm hoping you can come up with these on your own by looking at the picture, so I'll give you a second to look at the picture and then we'll fill in what they are. So the first picture, you have your breads, your pastas, some of your veggies, and those are the main sources in our diet of what we call carbohydrates, or more affectionately, your carbs. Carbohydrates really represent sugars, which are simpler, and starches, which are more complex. Okay. And their function in our body are numerous. So functions, FXNS is going to be our abbreviation for functions. So if you can't remember that, it's the first time you've seen it, right in brackets behind it, the whole word. Okay. Functions, first of all, sugar, short-term energy. Any of you know this? If you eat a candy bar, you get that little boost of energy, and then unfortunately you get that crash. Okay. They're also used for structure and support in our body. And maybe one of the more common areas we're used to seeing this is a carbohydrate called cellulose is what that stringy stuff is in celery, and that helps the celery keep its structure. And also in our body, and we'll talk about this a little bit more specifically, they're used for cell recognition. How do you tell yourself from the bad guy so you fight off the bad guy and don't harm your own cells? Cell recognition. In our body, this involves many carbohydrates. So, class 1, carbohydrates. The next key class, looking at meat, what do meats provide you with? Give yourself a second. Come on, answer. You've got it. Protein. Okay, so proteins, in fact amino acids, are largely obtained through eating meat, but if you're a vegetarian, you can get your proteins through eating things like legumes, peanuts, cheeses, that type of thing. So amino acids forming chains found in meats, legumes, those are things like beans. This is why tofu, it's derived from beans. It has lots of protein. And cheeses. And their functions are so numerous, we're not going to list them all right now, but they're really considered the workers of the cell. And they can have all sorts of different jobs, including things like enzymes, which speed up reactions, signaling, communication within your cell and between other cells, and what we more commonly think of, structure, such as building our muscles. Okay. And then if we look at the next picture, look carefully. There's avocados, there's some nuts, containers containing liquid, which oils, but there's a fancy word for oils. Your parents might know this if they've ever had like cholesterol tests and that. They may be told they have to watch their LIP. Can you guess the rest? Lipids. Okay. So lipids are a fancy word for fats, oils, phospholipids, and a funny thing fits in with these that you might not predict, steroids. And their functions: long-term storage, so long-term energy storage, I should say, and membranes of cells are made up of lipids. And signaling, in particular through hormones, which are a special class of steroids. Okay, so signaling. And finally, Our last group of biological molecules that we're going to consider, looking at the picture, this is a very specific example because this is double-stranded, but it also includes the single-stranded form. Have you guessed it? Nucleic acids. Or you might have guessed DNA and RNA. And this one's so important and a little more complicated that we're going to look at it on its own unit. Okay, but its functions are to store, transmit, and apply genetic information, the blueprints of our body, making sure they are kept and passed on and they're actually built upon. Okay. The final thing we need to look at is what do the above biological molecules have in common? It's something to do with their chemical formula. They all contain one particular element and another particular element, which means they are considered organic. And that is, they contain carbon and hydrogen. If you contain both as a molecule, you'll be considered organic. And all of these above molecules, classes of molecules, are organic. They all contain carbon and hydrogen. Okay. In contrast, molecules that contain only carbons or only hydrogen or neither carbon or hydrogen are considered, what's the opposite of organic? Good. I'm assuming you got it right. Inorganic. We have lots of key inorganic molecules in our body that help us survive, but most of the building blocks that make up our body are organic. If you have any questions regarding this, you can come see me in class or look some stuff up further on the internet. I hope you have a good day, and I'll see you in class.